All right, so looking at the brain, the frontal section of the brain, you have the primary gustatory cortex, which is how food tastes, and the secondary gustatory cortex. So your primary center is right there. I can roll that. Primary center is there. Your secondary center is inferior to it. And it's right around the insula where that section is taken. Boy. Okay. Sagittal genioglossus muscle for the tongue. You see the mandible, cross section of it. Geniohyoid muscle, a hyoid bone, and the epiglottis. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue that folds over the trachea so that when you swallow, the food goes into the esophagus and not into the trachea. That's the epiglottis. That's the function of the epiglottis there. You see that little extension sitting right up there. And this is your trachea right here. And this collapse too is your esophagus, which runs right there. Okay, this is a good view of the epiglottis. Okay, this is a flap of tissue that goes over the trachea, which is right here. And your esophagus right behind it. That closes the trachea, so when you swallow, food goes into the esophagus and not into the trachea. This is the hyoid bone. This is the cornea of the hyoid bone, the greater cornea of the hyoid bone. And then on the tongue, it has little taste buds. There's 3 different types. There's the circumvallate papillae, which is your large ones right in the back. And then there's medium ones, and then the very fine ones are your fungiform papillae, which are all over the tip, which are all over the side of your tip, the ventral surface of your tongue. Okay, this one everybody should get. You have the nose, you have the external nares. Okay, mid-side section again. The cribriform plate is where the olfactory nerves run through. You got cranial nerve number 1. And you got your nasal concha, which allows air to circulate in the nose before going down, so it warms it and gets that sticky and gets pathogens out of the air you breathe. So you have a superior nasal concha, you have a middle nasal concha, and you have an inferior nasal concha. And you can see the nasal vestibule there also, which is the opening. And this is the olfactory tract that comes after the nerves run through the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. Okay. Base of the brain again, you have the optic nerve and the optic tract. That's your optic chiasm. That X right there is your optic chiasm. Okay, there's the X. Optic tract is at it, and the optic nerve feeds from the optic chiasm from the eyes to the optic chiasm. Okay, view of the cranium. You have the superior oblique muscle. Okay, you have the optic nerve that runs the optic chiasm, the optic tract. Okay, that comes from the retina of the eye. That's the optic nerve. You have the frontal nerve. You have the levator palpebrae superioris muscle, elevates your eyebrow. You have the medial rectus muscle, moves the eye towards the midline, and the sclera of the eyeball, which is the outer portion of the eyeball. It's continuous to the cornea. Okay, a little bit deeper dissection. You have the medial rectus muscle, which turns the eye medially. You have the optic nerve again, and the optic chiasm has been cut out. This is the sclera of the eyeball. This is the eyeball itself. This is the covering of it. That's what forms your cornea also. You have your superior oblique muscle, rotates your eye up and to the side, and your superior rectus muscle, which rotates the eye straight up. Okay. Extrinsic eye muscles. Again, the superior rectus, medial rectus, and the inferior rectus. Superior rectus contracts, the eye goes up. Medial rectus contracts, the eye goes to inward to the midline of the body. The inferior rectus contracts, the eye goes down. The superior oblique brings the eye up an angle. The lateral rectus brings it to the outside, look at the lateral edge, and the inferior oblique rotates it inferior at an angle. Those are 6 muscle attachments that help move the eye. Oops. Okay. Looking at the eye, we have not done this yet. This is the basis of the eye. This is the retina, which forms into the optic nerve. This is the sclera, which is continuous with the outer surface of the eye. Okay, the sclera and the cornea are continuous. So the cornea is made up of the sclera. That's the covering over your eye, the protective lens, the protective covering. The iris, okay, determines your eye color and is the opening. Then you have your lens, which focuses the light. Your ciliary body, which is the muscles that control the diameter, okay, the shape of the lens. Ciliary muscles. Okay. Coronoid is the inner layer. Vitreous humor is the liquid or the thick substance inside the eye that makes it hold its shape, so it's round. And then the optic nerve, which transmits the optical image to the brain. Okay, there's your sclera, which is your choroid. This is the sclera of the eye, the outer portion. Okay, you have the iris, which is your eye color. It's muscle around it. You have the pupil, which focuses the light. And you have lacrimal caruncle, which is the inner portion of the eye where tears drain into that area. Okay, looking at the ear, you have the helix, which is the tip of the ear. You have the auricle, which is the entire external portion of the ear. And you have the targus of the ear. Targus of the ear is the inner fold where it sticks out onto the external acoustic meatus. Mm-hmm. This is your external acoustic meatus. This is the opening of the ear. We talked about that when we did the skull. Remember, it's just anterior to the mastoid process. That's your external acoustic meatus. This is the auricle of the ear. This is all the cartilaginous tissue of the ear on the outside. You have 3 small bones in the ear. They're the smallest bones in the human body. You have the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. They transmit sound to the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. You have semicircular canals, which allow the sound to flow in different areas and reverberate to get different sounds. We'll go over those when we do that. You have the cochlea, which is a snail-like structure. The parapharyngeal tympanic tube, which opens the opening from your ear into the oral cavity. This is what gets blocked when you can't pop your ears, like on a plane or something like that. That's what gets blocked with the cold. You can't equalize the pressure in your inner ear. This tube, the pharyngeal tympanic tube, allows you to equalize the pressure in the inner ear to the outside pressure. You have the vestibule, behind where the window is, where the stapes attaches to, and the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane is your eardrum. So all the sound hits the eardrum, then it goes into the malleus, incus, and stapes, into the inner part of the ear, where you got the semicircular canals and the cochlea, and how to interpret sound. We'll go through that in really great detail in chapter, I think it's 12. No, chapter 18. Sorry. Okay, here's a section of the ear you can look at. This is the external acoustic meatus. This is the opening, external opening of the ear. This is the auricle, which is the cartilaginous tissue of the ear. And this is the tympanic membrane, which is your eardrum. Okay. Again, the vibrations that hit that eardrum, back and forth, goes to the incus, the stapes, and the malleus. Those 3 bones. Okay. Looking at a great dissection, again, the mastoid ear, so that's your mastoid process, which you talked about before. This is the cranial fossa. Okay. You have the semicircular canals, which are little tubes that go into loops. Vestibulocochlear nerve number 8, vestibular nerve, facial nerve, which is number 7, and the stapes, which is the bone. It's the last bone that hits the actual ear from the eardrum. It's the one that hits the oval window that transmits the sound. So you get your stapes, you get the malleus, and the incus. And those are all part of the middle ear. Okay, so there's your middle ear. And then you have the incus, the malleus, and the stapes. There's all the 3 smallest bones of the human body. Okay, looking at your dissection of it. Again, the mastoid air cells. This is your mastoid process. Okay. You have the incus, the malleus. You can't see the stapes from here. Facial nerve number 7, the cochlea, which is a snail-like structure with lines around it. The cochleal nerve, the vestibular nerve, the internal acoustic meatus. That's the opening inside the ear, and then the cranial fossa outside of the bone. And you have the temporal bone, which has your mastoid process, which is here, your external acoustic meatus. Okay, this is your opening for the ear. And this is where the mandible fits in the fossa. This is the mandibular fossa with the temporomandibular joint in your zygomatic arch. And this is the temporal bone right here. All right. What structure is being highlighted?
Genioglossus.
The genioglossus. It's the main muscle of the tongue right there. Okay. That was the genioglossus. Look at that. What part of the eye is that?
Sclera.
The sclera is this part right here.
The iris?
That's the iris. Okay. That's the iris of the eye, controls the size and opening of the lens. Like we haven't covered that yet, but we will. Okay, what's that?
Nose.
That's the nose. All right. Okay, what structure's highlighted there?
Mandible.
I cannot see.
Looks like it's pointing at the bone.
Yeah, looks like pointing to the bone. Looks like pointing to the mandible to me too. Okay, that's your mandible. What structure is this? The opening for the ear.
External acoustic meatus.
External acoustic meatus. That's in the temporal bone. This is the
External nares.
external nares, openings for the nose. And what space is highlighted? Where's the highlighted space? Oh, it's this one right over here. It's just behind where the stapes hits it. So what? Yeah, come back. What space is that? Again, that's the vestibule. We haven't really gone over those in class, but we will. Okay, this is the honeycomb appearance of those cells, right? What would that be?
Mastoid air cells.
Mastoid air cells. Look at little honeycombs inside the mastoid process. This is the
Cranial fossa?
cranial fossa. Cranial bones, perfect. What structure is highlighted?
The chiasm.
Optic chiasm. That's a pretty good picture of it. What's that one?
Lacrimal.
Caruncle. The lacrimal caruncle. Perfect. What structure is highlighted? I can't even see it. What structure is highlighted? Doesn't look like a nerve or a bone.
It looks like it's spiraled. So cochlea.
Yeah, looks like it's pointing to the opening to me. So I would say the cochlea. It looks like, yeah. What structure is highlighted? Oh man, I don't know what it's pointing to. I think it's pointing to this muscle right here. That's what it looks like. Feeds into the eyeball there. Yeah, it looks like it's pointing to the muscle. And that would be it's onto the superior oblique. Gosh, I can't tell. Look, it's going to the lateral portion, the superior portion of the eye. That's what it looks like. It's pointing to the superior oblique muscle. It's a levator palpebrae. Okay, so it's pointing to the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. Okay. Innervates the eyebrow right up here. All right, what structure is highlighted here?
Inferior oblique.
Inferior oblique muscle. Yep. What structure is highlighted there? Okay. This is the inferior nasal concha, the middle nasal concha, and this is the
Cribriform plate.
superior nasal concha. Because it looks like this is the inferior nasal concha, the middle, the cribriform plate's right here, where it feeds through up here. Here's the nerve of the bulb, and here's where the cribriform plate is. So I would say that'd be the superior nasal concha. Yep. Okay, and this is looks like pointing to the outside of the eye, which is what?
Sclera.
Sclera. I don't see any nerves it's pointing to. Yep, the sclera of the eyeball. What is the action of the highlighted structure? This is the lateral rectus muscle, so it moves the eye which way?
Laterally.
It moves the eye laterally. That's what I would say. Yep. Again, same thing. The inferior nasal concha, middle nasal concha, and that's the superior nasal concha. Better be. Everybody sees it. You can see the three bones there, right? Inferior, middle, and superior. So that's what it's pointing at. Oh, it says which bone? Which bone is high structure? So what bone is the superior nasal concha attached to? Ethmoid bone, sphenoid bone, maxillary bone, or the frontal bone? I think it's part of the sphenoid bone, if I remember correctly. No, ethmoid. Part of the ethmoid bone. What hair type is found within the highlighted space? Vellus, pubic hair, terminal hair, Fabrice. I guarantee it's not pubic hair. I think in the nose it's vellus. Maybe? Nope. Vibrise. Vibrise hair is found in the nose. And the light detected cells of the highlight structure are called, okay, this is your retina. So what are the cells that detect light called in the retina?
Photoreceptors.
Photoreceptors, the only one that has an image with it. Perfect.